Okay, guys, so now let's talk about how we're going to get to that point. All right. So if we want to create a darker value, then we need to push harder with our pencil, right? That's going to make your pencil make a darker mark. And if we want to make something lighter, like a light gray, then we have to um, put very little pressure on our pencil. Okay. But in my opinion, the easiest way to actually start your rendering is by putting a what we call a mid-tone or a middle gray across your entire drawing. All right. I'm not saying like the background too. We're just going to focus on the bird for now. Okay. So you're going to take your pencil, hold it very lightly. Okay. You don't want to apply too much pressure. It's actually easier to just to add pencil, to add graphite to the drawing than it is to take it away. Um, so let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay. So you're going to want to lightly push down on your pencil and slowly cover the entire drawing with the same shade of gray. Okay, this might be hard for some of you guys, so I would recommend if you need to, get another sheet of paper. Get another sheet of paper and just do this. Like try to make a mid gray. Sorry, it's really hard to see because it's really bright out, but let me zoom in a bit. Okay, I'll make it a little bit darker for you guys. Okay, if you guys can see that, right? It's a mid gray. It's not completely white, but it's also not super dark. All right. We do this because in our reference image, our our bird is not white, right? It's really hard to work from the lightest you can go, which is white. So I like to actually set a middle ground, and that way, if I need to go lighter, I just have to erase. And if I need to go darker, I just push down harder later on. Okay, so but bring it back to step one, just set a middle gray across the entire thing. The eyes too. Okay, so zoom out a bit. Okay, now that we have our mid-tone gray, right, I'm going to look at the original image and I'm going to look at, I like to start with the shadows first. Yeah, I'm going to look at the darkest areas on our reference picture. All right. So the first thing people will do is they'll look at the areas that are just like black, right? If it's pure black, then um, start with that because that's the easiest thing. So it looks like the eye is probably our first choice. So I'm going to put a lot of pressure on my pencil. Not so much that I'm going to rip the paper or break my pencil, right? But I'm going to fill in this eye like so. Okay, sorry, I'm moving my sticky note. All right, so there, it's as dark as I can get it. And next to it, this like area around the beak, okay, I need to make that darker as well. Okay, so there you go. Now, notice here on the reference, it's black, but it's not as dark as that eye. So I'm going to make it a little bit lighter, like I have here. All right. So this is when it actually gets kind of hard to record because the camera doesn't really pick up the subtleties so well. So if you look at your drawing in real life, it's not going to look the same as my drawing here, especially since I'm so zoomed in too. Okay. Next, I'm going to start adding in some other shadows. The most I like to work piece by piece still, right? So I'm going to work on this head up here, right? If you look at this side of the head and this side of the head, then you'll see that it's darker on one side compared to the other, right? We talked about this side being the direction of the light or where the light is coming from. Okay, so everything on the left side should be lighter, and everything on the right side should be the opposite. It should be darker, right? But it's not pitch black, right? It's not completely black and dark on this side. So I have to start to slowly and softly make add some darkness. Okay, add some darker value. right? So first I'm gonna locate the shape of that shadow, right? Notice here, it's just along this underside of the head, all right? So I'm gonna apply some pressure to the underside of the head. Okay, it's okay if you mess up here. It's a little less forgiving than just lines because you have to reapply the midtone, but that's okay, right? So I'm just gonna do it very roughly. I'm not trying to make it super photorealistic. I'm just trying to make it more realistic than where I had it, right? So that looks about right. I'm comparing it to the original, the reference, I mean, okay? And there you go. Now I'm gonna look at the top right here. I see that it's up there as well. So I'm gonna add that. It's about the same darkness. So I'm noticing there's a bit of a like light area as well. All right, and if you feel ready, you can add gradients as well to blend it together a little more smooth. But if not, that's okay too. And it's a little dark behind the eye as well. There you go. And now I have the top portion of my bird's head almost completed. Just looked back at my reference and saw that this should be a little bit darker. Okay, and I see under here just a little bit darker as well. Okay, not as dark as here because it's getting closer to the light, right? So it's going to be slightly darker, but not so dark that it's in the shadow again. Okay. Now, the next most obvious part is this underside of the wing on the body. All right, so I'm going to shade that in as well. Notice that this wing is actually casting a shadow. This dark area, it's blocking the light, which is why it's so much darker on this side compared to like the head, right? The head had this side slowly get lighter this way, but since this wing is here, it's actually making this part under the wing darker than this side, slightly. They're both still in shadow, but it's slightly going to be darker. Okay, and there you go. I've added in the shadow. Now I'm just doing simple shadows here, right? I'm not trying to get like super subtle with 10 different values with like a dark, dark, dark gray, a dark, dark gray, blah, 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 blah. I'm just shading in the obvious areas, okay? Under here, the wing as well. All right. Next, I'm gonna move on to the underside of the tail. Just a small area here. It's not too large of a shadow, okay? All right. Now, let me think if I have any more shadows. Few under the feathers, but those are little detail shadows, right? You can add those if you want, but those are the like last things that people will look at. They're mostly looking at the larger forms, okay? So now I'm gonna look at the wing. It's just slightly, the wing's kind of flat, but it's a little bit, there's a little bit of a shadow here. It's not gonna be as dark as any of the other shadows you put in, so make sure that you don't overdo it with the pencil here, okay? All right, so from here, I've pretty much gotten most of the shadows, right? I To get the highlights or the light parts and bring it back to that white paper. I'm actually going to use an eraser. Okay, we put that middle, which is a medium gray, right? We put the dark down, or we pushed down with our pencil and added more of that pencil to the drawing, and that made our dark. All right, now we need to think about how we're going to make our light, and to go from medium to light, you need to remove the pencil. All right, so I'm going to be using my eraser. I recommend if you have one, using a small eraser, not like this giant sumo grip eraser like I have, but this is all that I have available. So I'm noticing on the reference, the left side, it's the highlights mostly come along the side of the body and the side of the head, as well as the beak. Okay, so I'm just going to erase those areas there with my eraser, like so. And the tail has a little bit, actually, so I'm going to add that in there. If you erase a little bit too much, that's okay. You can just go back and fix it. Go add a little bit of that medium gray. And then go into the beak. So I erased a little bit too much, but now I can go back into it with my pencil and add that bit of shadow underneath the beak and above the beak. Okay. And there you go. Let me zoom out a bit more. And there you go. All right, you can see the highlight that I added here. All right. And if you were to compare it to the beginning of the video, what this bird looked like, it was much different, right? You can see that this bird now looks a little bit more realistic. It is now rendered.